Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shivam. I'm the founder and CEO of AlmaBetter. Welcome to today's Ask Me Anything session. So, as you all know, this is a integral part of our Learn, Earn, Return program that we offer here at AlmaBetter. Every week, we organize an AMA session where we invite an experienced data science professional to enlighten us about the industry and the career prospects it holds for beginners. So these sessions are very insightful for students who are willing to build a career in the data science field. So with that being said, let's welcome our guest for today, Mr. Pratyyush Sinha. So hi Pratyush, thank you so much for taking the time out for this session. It's a pleasure to have you here today. So before we get into the question and answer part, so let me just introduce Pratyush to you guys. Pratyush is currently the principal data scientist at Ahold Delhaize. Delhaize is a Dutch grocery retail company that provides omni-channel offering to millions of customers across Europe, US, and Indonesia. Previously, Pratyush has worked as a data scientist across various verticals like retail, telecom, finance, and healthcare. So he has been in the industry for more than 15 years now. So he is here today to share his insights about the data science industry and to answer your questions about the same. So let's hear more from Pratyush himself. Pratyush, anything you'd like to add about your professional background?
No, that was very good, Shivam. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Um, yeah, and I'm happy to start.
Sure. To start with, as we all know, right? So data science is being used extensively in various fields to extract meaningful information from the humongous amount of data that is being generated every day. So can you tell us how data science capabilities are being leveraged at Ahold Delhaize for to fuel the company's growth in particular?
Yeah, sure. We have some strategic pillars supporting data science, and these strategic pillars are basically use cases. And we know that data can support these strategic use cases to increase revenue, to reduce waste, to reduce churn,
Mhm.
and also to increase customer lifetime value. For example, if we want to do personalized cross sell, so if
Mhm.
you come to the website and I'm talking about website because the supermarket that I work for, it has completely maxed out its retail shop quota, so
Got it.
not open anymore. So we have to focus towards online shops.
Okay.
And there it makes sense that if you buy X amount of items in your basket,
Mhm.
then it could sell you more. Then
Right.
the basket size becomes larger, and then we make more money.
Right.
So how do we sell you more? If you buy banana and apple, then can we sell you probably a peach?
Mhm.
So if that's the kind of stuff people like, then can we mine those rules from the data? And
Right.
that essentially pushes your revenue and shareholder value.
Right, right.
One good
So
example.
very interesting use cases in retail in e-commerce, right? So you have been part of the data science industry for over 15 years now, and you must have worked on various interesting projects, right? So what are some of the challenges that you have faced while working with data, and what learnings can you share with people looking to enter into this field?
Um, so as an individual, so now the landscape has shifted a little bit
Yep.
because when I started in 2005, there was no specific program dedicated to data science as such. We had computer science engineering and probably statistics.
Correct. Yes.
But now the landscape is different. Look, now there are programs such as yours who try
Mhm.
to focus on data science itself.
Right.
And so, from that perspective, what I felt was that as I was growing in my career, I had to learn a lot of stuff on my own.
Mhm.
And even the ecosystem was not rich for open source learning tools. Now, when you go to YouTube, you find multiple ways of doing the same thing. You can spend 1 day, 2 day, and formalize your own understanding of the topic and then reuse it.
Right.
Plus you have Kaggle competitions, you have multiple open source Git repos, you have libraries, you have collab notebooks. So the ecosystem is very rich if you want to
Correct.
teach yourself.
Yes.
That's not what I had, and I had to spend a lot of time to understand it by myself. It was good in the sense that I feel privileged that I had to do it on my own so that I
Mhm.
can
Yep.
absorb those things more.
Right.
Um, but it was also a lot of, it was very time consuming.
Right. Right. But still, I guess the self learning never stops, right? So data science in itself is a dynamic field. uh, Day in and day out, a whole lot of research work is going on an everyday basis. We see new algorithms, new research coming in this field, and that makes it much more important to follow the old school processes of self learning, exploring in this field at least. Of course, I we should acknowledge the fact that the ecosystem has grown quite a lot, so it becomes easy to do self learning, but you still have to do it from yourself. No, we can, in the initial days for beginners, we can provide as much guidance as possible through these type of programs, but then it totally rests upon the students to develop this curiosity and learn every day on their own, right?
Mm.
Given that this is a dynamic field, so most of the students who are attending this AMA session are either freshers or have some experience in another domain. Essentially, these are all data science enthusiasts looking to break into the data science industry. So we had asked the students to post their questions on our LinkedIn page. So maybe you can take some questions from there. So yeah, so Chinmay has this question. So out of all the projects that you have done, which one do you regard as your most successful project in terms of impact, and why?
Uh, First, I would like to make a general statement that
Uh,
I've been very proud of all of my projects because when I was doing them, I had full intention to put all my heart and my time and
right.
my brain and my foot into it.
Uh-huh.
So they have all been my babies. So I cannot say that I'm especially proud of one of them. But I can say that it's definitely more than one. I have 15 years of career, so it's going to be more than one project.
Definitely go ahead. We are all ears. Yeah.
So I will talk about three projects briefly that made maximum impact on my career.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yep. Sure.
and of
Sure.
course, which meant it also had a lot of
Mhm.
impact on the companies for which I was building this.
Right.
So one was for a gambling company where I had to build a model to predict that which customer is going to basically become bankrupt by simply overplaying the gambling lottery. So
Mm-hmm.
I was working for a gambling company in Malta, and there was this continuous problem that somebody. So in Malta, gambling is allowed,
Mm-hmm.
and there people from all over the world can have account and keep and deposit X amount of money and continuously play with that money. But what happens is that if you are earning X amount of money and you play with that entire salary of your month and then lose it, then you're essentially have nothing to eat, simply put.
Right. Yep. Yep.
And then even if there are like y number of such players and one of them goes to press, then there is a story, and then for no systematic reason the share prices drop because now there
Right.
is a bad press against you. So it
Mm-hmm.
directly came from the CEO's office, from shareholders, that hey, can you do something? Can you predict these people beforehand before they go crazy and start reporting it to media? So
Okay.
clearly we couldn't do that. But what we could do is that based on the playing pattern, we could predict that who is playing out of their capacity, and
Yep.
then inform the customer support team, and then ask them to take proactive action, either block their account temporarily or do some counseling.
Yep.
So that was one very interesting project to predict who's going to play responsibly in the coming future.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other project that I'm very proud of is one that I'm currently working on is to basically how to how to do customer journey
Mm-hmm.
segmentation and take all the millions of customers based on their purchase pattern and map it to segment of one, because
Mm-hmm.
that will allow you to predict what this customer is going to do based on the past pattern in the next 1 month.
Right.
How are they going to react? How big is going to be the basket? How many times they're going to purchase? So sort of build a customer DNA that could
Mm-hmm.
predict about the future. And
Right.
also about a project in the current company itself that we are trying to build a semantic search.
Okay.
We are CPG industry, so we are very sensitive about the fact that why people should go on Google and look for what is the best sauce that goes with this pasta. We should know this. We should know it better than Google.
Yes.
So how can we bring in current state of the art to build that semantic search within our search engine
Mm-hmm.
and a list of such data products?
Yep. Yeah, so those were very interesting to know. I guess, yeah, so the gambling one, with the rise of the gambling industry, especially responsible gaming becomes much more important, right? So wider implications of the work that you did, right? So one question that I see, which is common across students, right? So now what are, so since you have so much experience, you would be best suited, right? So you have a macro view now. So what are some of the qualities that every budding scientist should have before they enter the industry, right? So three, four key skills that you think are most important.
Um, so I would say that generally this field is becoming increasingly complex.
Mm-hmm.
Every day, as you said, there are new models coming up, new tools, new uh, tech stack, and so you have to be extremely curious.
Mm-hmm.
And curiosity means that you have to invest definitely 1 or 2 hours from your personal time to keep yourself upgraded, and you have to make an effort to try it out, not just read, but try it out.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Collab Notebook that you can use and very easily try out new stuff. So you have to be curious enough to try out new stuff.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's one. Second, I would say that you need to build focus. But when I say focus, I don't mean that one kind of industry or one kind of modeling. You have to build focus to learn something for next 1 month,
Mm-hmm.
try it out, put it in your set of tools, and then move on, and then
Right.
focus on one
Correct.
next tool and
Yes.
next tool.
Yes.
And the third thing is that you have to keep reusing it so that you don't forget. Because a lot of times you will see that something that you've learned like 1 year back comes back, and then you can tweak it a little bit to make significant impact.
Right.
I would say curiosity, focus, and continuously reusing it.
Right. Yeah, I think very good advice for the ones who are beginning their career. So, one more question that I got from Rishikesh. So, how was your experience in developing a fraud detection model using self-supervised learning?
So I can quickly give you the brief idea about how it works.
Sure.
So yeah, there's a model called autoencoders, and
Mhm.
autoencoders, that it takes the data, compresses it to a smaller vector, and then recovers the original data back through root mean
Yes.
square error or some other supporting objective functions.
Mm-hmm.
But then I discovered something called quantized vector autoencoders. What it does is that it takes the data and maps it to some modes of the cluster.
Okay.
And essentially, each data has to map to one of those clusters, and then it has to recover from that.
Okay.
And what you find is that if there are some modes of the cluster which essentially happen to be quite far away
Mm-hmm.
from the normal distribution, and those far away cluster modes could be your errors, could be your anomalies,
Okay.
and that is one way to immediately check. Plus, you could also introduce an element of semi-supervised. So you could have, for example, in credit card, you will essentially have 0.01% of the data that
Mm-hmm.
is essentially fraud, only
Right.
0.01%.
Right.
But
Yes.
if you have labels for these data points, then you can ask your gradient to push your cluster towards a boundary which says that these are fraud, and
Right.
then he gets extra supervision.
Mm-hmm.
So using that, when you have inference data, then automatically, if you see that if you have the final vector that is closer to those nodes, which means that it's
Right.
more of a fraud than not of a fraud.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's how you can identify.
Right.
And
Right.
one unique characteristic of fraud detection is that you don't get too much data points telling that it's fraud, because by its very nature, most of the transactions, at least in credit card, is non-fraud.
Correct. Correct. So as far as my experience goes in fraud detection, I guess these are the only two techniques, right? So either you go with totally unsupervised anomaly detection kind of framework, or since the data is so imbalanced, you use some techniques to balance out the data
Exactly.
or tweak
Yeah,
your algorithms to take care of it.
absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So one more question that I want to take from Suraj. So as a student at AlmaBetter, I have worked on industry related projects. I wanted to know that in terms of starting a new project from scratch, do you have a specific set of steps that you follow? Like how do you go from data collection to presentation and delivery?
Um, so first, I would say that it depends that in what ecosystem do you work. If you
Mhm.
work for a big team, because I have worked for different kind of companies, very small companies and very big. So currently, I work for a very big company. If you work for a very big company, then you have support of ecosystem. You have a team of data
Okay.
engineers who basically create your automated extraction, transformation, loading pipelines, and they provide you the compute platform, and you simply have to build your models.
Right.
Um, so if if that's the case, then you can basically continuously engage with these data engineers and ask your requirement, and they will do it for you. You just have to focus on the modeling.
Right.
That's
Yes.
very easy. Uh, if you happen to work in that scenario, great. Uh, you can focus more on the modeling and do more of the interesting stuff. But
Right.
if you work for a small company, then a lot of this responsibility falls on your own shoulders. And then you have to write your own extraction, transformation, loading pipeline. You have to clean data. If you have to do your own modeling, if it doesn't work, then you have to go and find out again whether the data quality was an issue or your model is an issue. You
Mm-hmm.
have to do A/B testing. So from that perspective, you need to be a generalist slash specialist.
Right.
So there is no shortcut there. You just have to, if you work as a data scientist for a small company, it is more
Mhm.
like investment banking job. You have to always keep working.
Right. Yes. And no, yeah, so this is very correct, right? So it's a spectrum of how, at what maturity level the organization is in terms of AI adoption, right? So that kind of builds the processes internally as to who does
But
what.
I would add that I have seen this, that if you happen to be lucky enough, lucky enough to work
Yeah.
for a small company, then you
Uh-huh.
happen to become a full stack ML engineer.
Correct.
And
Yes.
the value of such a person in the market as you grow in your career is extremely high.
Right. Right.
Extremely high. There are some companies. Yeah, I will not speak about the numbers. You can go and
Uh-huh.
search on
Yeah.
Google, but extremely valuable folks.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. And it's rare to find such people who are,
Yeah.
master of all trades,
Oh,
right? So
yes, yes.
the entire end to end. So let's take one more question. So Raj has this question. So what would be some developments in the field of data science that you wish to see in the near future? And what do you think is the future of data science?
Um, it's a very good question. This question is very dear to my heart because I just don't want to see where it's moving. I also want to contribute to it. Uh,
Right. Yep.
so, if you guys are aware of transformer architectures,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
so the transformer architecture is this architecture brought by Google in 2017 with a paper called "Attention is All You Need," and it's
Right.
essentially a sequence modeling where you
Correct.
give your sequence of data mapped to some tokens,
Mm-hmm.
and then basically through self-supervision, it learns how to encode that into vector representation from which you decode whatever you want to for downstream tasks.
Right. Right.
But as you know that there are a lot of new additions to that, transformers, performers, linear transformers,
Right.
all
Yeah.
sort of things to optimize that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a paper from Google again in 2021 saying that attention is not all you need. You need some inductive bias in your models to make sure that it works.
All right.
So
Yes.
essentially, there is going to be more research towards learning a more general purpose compute engine so
Mm-hmm.
that based on the data that you are getting, you could learn on the fly that how to represent that data, not necessarily a fixed learned static set of weights.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it's moving. But from the objective side, so this is the architecture. How can
Right.
you focus on everything to learn what's best? But
Yes.
how do you learn that? The objective function. That is
Mm-hmm.
about causal representation. So there is a lot of talk going on right now about causal representation. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if you get an image, let's say of a penguin in Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you really learn from that image and its representation? Let's say you learned something, you want to do a downstream task of identifying is it a penguin or it's a dragon?
Mm-hmm.
Then probably you will focus on some snow and some
Mm-hmm.
beak of the penguin, and then you will say it's a penguin. But
Right.
the snow itself is completely irrelevant, right? A
Yep.
penguin can be penguin in a desert and in snow, and it doesn't matter.
Right.
How
Yes.
do you learn these causal representations where you have the shape of the penguin, the scale of the penguin, the texture of the penguin, and environment is completely factored out?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So these causal representations is an area of research which is telling you that then you can be extremely data savvy. You don't have to need a lot of data to do your learning.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the world is moving. And I am also very keen to contribute to this research.
Right. Yeah, I guess this is a tremendous, peak in whatever we have been doing till now, right? So, students who found this discussion a bit technical, don't worry. So some of the students are, at various levels of the in the program. So, those who have not gone through these concepts will be learning all of this in deep learning module. So yeah. So yeah, definitely, I totally agree on the these areas wherein in future it will contribute to much more interesting projects and use cases, right? So yeah, so to take one more question, so from Himanshu, so you have worked as a data scientist across various sectors. According to you, which industry has benefited the most with the inclusion of data science?
Google. Google. Of course,
That's
Google.
right.
Because,
So probably the advertisement industry, right? So
uh,
uh, in general.
I mean, so Google is a platform where I mean, essentially they make money by serving advertisements to the right targeted people.
Uh-huh.
But people don't go there because of that. People go there
Correct.
to find
Yes.
information.
Right.
And they basically using this transformer architecture, which is now embedded in all search that they do,
Mm-hmm.
is now doing semantic search.
Right.
So basically now if you go and find this kind of, if you go and type query that, hey, what are the best sources to learn data science for transformers? It will
Mm-hmm.
exactly scroll through like all the index websites, find exactly the right snippet within that web page and find the semantic match and say, hey, there are all the right phrases in this part of the text which answers your question. So let me re-rank it and show it to you the first thing.
Definitely.
And look at the share price as a result,
Right.
and Amazon. So you cannot say one industry. It is
Uh-huh.
basically dependent upon the company that has used AI to solve their best use cases.
Correct. Yes. And I guess the business model does not matter as long as the products that your customers are using has utilized AI to deliver that experience, right?
Yes,
So
yes, and to one and to support that statement, you have Uber also. You
right.
use Uber, it tells you that how much time you're going to wait, and it's
Mm-hmm.
almost accurate.
Correct.
So
Yes.
that is also using AI.
Yes. So I guess we have covered almost all the questions because many of the questions revolve around the basic skill sets that a data scientist should have. I guess we have covered that. Let me check if we have
There's
some.
one question from Sudeep on the
Okay.
chat.
Yep, we
Uh,
can take that. So
Companies to put up a complete end-to-end till deployment. Um, so I read the question.
okay, sure,
He's
sure.
basically
Go
asking
ahead.
that how
Mhm.
important it's to have deployed a project end to end.
Right,
So again, we talked about this. If you are such a guy or such a girl who can do full stack, because this is full stack ML engineering, if you could do
right,
that, it's super impressive.
correct.
Super
Yes,
impressive. Because
yes.
modeling is interesting, but again, the problem is that there are too many people focused on modeling.
Yep, yep. So the crowd resides there, right? So if you want to become an outlier, you have to be, a
Yes.
full stack, and that's the reason why to gain get ours to make sure that our students get an edge when they are competing with the herd, right? So we have this built in into our curriculum, so that once they go through this entire deep learning, machine learning, engineering. Of course, we covered till machine learning fairly quickly, but we have some advanced topics such as MLE, machine learning engineering, wherein we dive deep into deployment as well as data engineering aspects.
Yes.
So,
I think that your focus is spot on. I think this is the
right,
thing for next at least 2 3 years. We don't have 2 3 years because it changes so fast. But I
correct.
think you have got the crux right of this trend where it's
Right,
moving.
right. And that's why, instead of just, saying that, okay, we'll deliver data scientists who can just code, some models, because that, again, it's getting automated, right? Via auto ML and all of these things coming up. So, we have just that thing in mind when we designed our curriculum. And we have a lot of enthusiasts from the industry wanting to deliver the advanced topics, right? So that kind of adds to the synergies. So yeah. So yeah, so I guess we have taken all the questions from the chat, so we can we have reached the end of this session. So in case you have anything else to add before we conclude.
Um, I would say that make a lot of good use of collab notebooks from Google,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and try to follow a couple of open source repos,
Right,
and try to keep learning from them because people keep adding new stuff to them, and that's where
right.
you can fire on new problems. And formulate your own principal way of learning, so
Mm-hmm.
that absolutely be sure that you will never stop learning here. This
Right.
is like if your parents told you that, hey, you are done, you're working now, you don't need to learn. This is one field that you will never stop learning. This is like a PhD program for your life.
Correct. Yes, yes, can't agree more. So with this, we have reached the end of the session. Thank you so much, Pratyush, for joining us today. Sessions like these are immensely valuable for our students who are, who get to interact with the experts and get their point of view. So, and this also helps them prepare for whatever is coming ahead of them, right? So, thank you so much, Pratyush, again. It was lovely to have you here today.
Same here, Shivam. It was lovely to interact with young India, and I wish them all the success.
Sure. Thanks, Pratyush. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. So, to all our audience, so this was Pratyush. We will have this session again next week with a new guest. Thank you all for joining.